Julie here, and I'm going to do a little bit of an energy read while I'm caretaking for a video. So let's go BitChute, upload my first video today. So first of all, around Neptune. So I'm going through my Neptune square, and I also did chart of Albania with their Neptune Procyon. But also there's another thing. There are certain people whose Gnosis of Procyon might be very compatible to what they're going through. And this is important. For example, I'm going through my Neptune square. My original Neptune is at the beginning of Capricorn. So Neptune in Capricorn usually had the role of restriction and having to surrender a certain restriction. While, let's say, the trine was from Pisces, where we felt openness of the perhaps choice or setting intention to explore other dimensions. Okay? And for Neptune in Aries, it's about having to surrender action, but also taking actions to manifest something. So that's something that comes up. And another Gnosis that I had was around Sedna in Gemini. Mercury rules humor, and Sedna rules betrayal. So I just think about the Japs, which the Japs were a military operation of betrayal, because it was a democide and a false flag. And right now I'm joking about basically joking about something that was done as betrayal. But Sedna was betrayed by her father and by her community. And that brought up hunger onto the community. With Uranus Sedna, this is happening on a world scale. And I kept seeing the feminization, humiliation rituals of secret societies. But it can also go to indigenous. And what I'm getting is that, how should I say that? This is the difference between satire and mockery ritual. Now, there is intention is going to play a big role here, because when intention is about, let's say, preparing somebody to be a public figure, then kind of a psychological training of dealing with mockery or dealing with, criticism or dealing with bullying or all types of things. But another thing is that there are, how should I say that? It's going to cause problems with the minerals, which are going to cause problems with the money laundering, which are causing an absolute and total financial crisis. I know that the stock for Nvidia was dropping. I haven't looked deeply enough into that yet. Every stock has a story, so I don't know. There was something, because Nvidia, there was United States asking for 10% of the profits, so the stock fell once, and now there's something with the limitations of China. So Nvidia is probably very associated with the Saturn Neptune. And I would need to look at that. I've received Nvidia a lot. I would need to look at that again. But as a person that wrote satire, and by the way, satire is a form of channeling, because authentic satire, before knowing about cloning and the horrid rituals that are done and that they are associated with real estate, I say Why do all people that are called narcissistic act exactly in the same fashion? It's almost like they were made in a Ford factory. Knowing nothing about CIA, Gladio operations, nothing. I was just like a little child watching something that looked very funny to me, and that was my natural childlike response. Now they attack innocence. So that would explain a lot of things that happened to me throughout my childhood and so on. Um, and innocence is actually so important to the scientific endeavor, because whatever I would look at something, I would just look at it with a child-eyed view, with curiosity, and that would 9/11 everything that was attacking the light. And perhaps, when I did the chart of Albania, I was saying, oh, probably because I've been having on the Galactic Center, probably people ask, hey, how come I'm not Luciferian? Because it is a placement that a person goes sometimes to the light, sometimes to the dark. And my natural answer is because I look at things with childlike curiosity. And Baphometian Luciferian rites today, again, I'm not talking about the people that work with Lucifer to recover from child abuse. No, I'm talking about the secret society rites, that they are trying to get something that inherently is not ever going to be under control, like a Gnosis, to be under control. And they try to work through egregores and so on and so forth, but what can I say? And the rights that they do are violating children and infants. Actually, I think children can look at the faces of people and see who's practicing Luciferian rites. Not always, but yeah, there are some things that would make a person look like they're devoid of soul. They're not devoid of soul, but because they did those practices, it's draining. That's simply put. And it was rituals that were done on them as well. So the Gnosis for Sedna, it has to do with the real estate and the minerals, is that those mockery rituals are involved with the treason, and something's just going to happen with those that's going to, how should I say that? Probably we might even see it just in a couple of years, but it is going to go out of control in such a way that nobody predicted. And again, I don't know which direction or whatnot, but just that there is something about this which is how should I say, if it was done in a real estate, and I want you to watch Light and her channeling about this recent episode. If it was done in a real estate, it necessitates a community of people that are themselves betraying one another, working in unison to betray. And basically what it does, that anybody that would purchase this estate will have to cleanse the rituals from the estate. Okay? So this is not like witch hunt, anything about. And today morning I got this gnosis that with Pluto out of bounds, it's kind of like it's not witch hunt anymore. Something way, way, way more intense on a worldly scale, on an intergalactic scale, where it's not the people that are being hunted or the witches that are being hunted. And it will be those people that would come to those estates, and particularly the people that would own these estates. Either the people will first live in those estates and they wouldn't be able to cleanse them. I think about Japan, because in Japan people used to not live in a place where a person was murdered. And then they began to cleanse the energy so it is livable, which means that there are going to be a lot of cold cases solved in Japan. Entertainment lawyers that decided not to be real estate lawyers because they couldn't face the blood. uh, yeah, and this is on a global megalithic scale. So think about the addition of Sedna. Entire communities could be wiped off the planet. It's kind of like either they would change. Today I woke up with this, and it's no wonder they did Chart of Albania, because Albania, the way it sustained was adapting its gnosis and spirituality to accommodate for not completely immerse in, but be in a Zen-like position. By the way, the minerals I'm taking for the probiotics I'm taking is actually called Zen. Saturn in Aries, biological bacteria, and don't ask me how. Biological bacteria, what's not clear? Because it purifies the blood. I don't know how to explain that medically right now. It anchors in the support of the minerals, which is imperative for the nervous system. Saturn is now in Pisces, but it's kind of like biological bacteria. And Saturn Pisces, we look into the bone marrow and the bone health. Is it supported by our spiritual practices or not? Like I said, everything is changing, completely transforming. So those old rites and rituals are basically getting at people to such a degree where they, first of all, they actually retrieve innocence instead of taking innocence. They are designed to take innocence, but they retrieve innocence, because what do? You think about it. I lived in a house where such ritual was done, and I had no idea. Only yesterday I found out. I think a year I'm not there. And when it happened, they do it to siphon the energy. Okay? So, and then they would have to accommodate for me because because otherwise they will not have food. And not just food like food. And this is why it's beyond the witch hunt, because it's not food. It's they're feeding on the energy and trying to feed on the essence of people, so they will not have essence, which can, through an existential crisis, reconnect people with themselves. But either they would do that or they would perish, and that would mean that they would need to change the trajectory. I don't make the rules. I mean, I just be me, and folk can do weird things with me being me. Then they get their rules. Their rules are collapsing on them, and basically, what ritual abuse is doing is trying to collapse one's own rules upon them. Now, the gnosis can be where, hey, actually, I don't know, that belief has a limitation, or or hey, that is a detail I didn't think about, and so on. But the other thing is that there is also an implication to collapsing one's belief system upon them with the intent of taking their life essence. It's like to challenge one's belief system. Cool, that's how we grow spiritually. To try to take their life essence by collapsing their belief system creates a gnosis of an existential crisis fashion. Now, what happens when community do that for real estate and resources and land resources and minerals? Okay, it's just like common sense. Now, a lot of those rituals and rites are done with people practicing something that they have no idea what they're doing. And even, for example, when I take essential oil, lavender. So, first of all, how would we learn? I would take a drop of lavender, sniff it, okay, smell it, and see what comes out in me. And this is a gnosis. This is how I would learn about the plant. And then I would go to read about the plant and so on and so forth. So they do the same thing with rituals. And now we're kind of having the implications. Okay? So, for example, living in a state like that, I had the honorable experience to live in a state like that. And particularly when they try to define for someone what will they, ooh, this is so weird. They tried to define for me what will I be doing in the estate, but they were traffickers. And then basically I cleansed the trafficking from estates. And I exposed the trafficking that's done in estates. And I exposed how do they get people to traffic because of the use of drugs and stuff. They get people to make irrational decisions about estates, but also about spiritual practices. So basically it was very satirical because I was trying to clean and purify the place for 2-3 years, and then it was like, okay, I need to clean my paying rent to this place, and I cannot even if I had the money, I couldn't purchase the place ethically because that would funnel the money to trafficking children and violating them and violating people and women and perpetuating evil on a Holocaust level. Okay, so it means that it wouldn't be ethical for me to buy the estate. It wouldn't be ethical for me to be a tenant in the estate. And all I was doing was purifying my energy, purifying this, purifying that. And what happens? I had to clean myself off the estate, not because of the estate, but because of that those that have a hold on the estate are doing things that are only work on a certain frequency, which I was never a match to. In fact, the fact that the estate is simply, the land, the location, the building structure itself, this is the only frequency that connected me to become a tenant there. And it either means that this estate would be destroyed, but they cannot be the benefactors from this destruction either. And it's kind of like now I hold the key because I've lived there for several years. And if they try to have another tenant, there are many beings, entities, whatnot, that are kind of like, hey, where is that person that lived here for 3 years? And it's beyond, it's supernatural. Now, this is a study case for something that happens to many, many people or along many states. Okay, going back to Japan, people couldn't live in a house where somebody was murdered, and then they began to purify the place, which means that the cold cases are going to be solved. Now, of course, that's to do with banking systems. to the level, or you think about the fact that to the level of the bank teller, people are going to be dealing with the repercussion of their of those systems that surround them. Yeah, it's a difficult transit. It's a difficult transit. Um, but those rituals, the mockery, was basically to take the life force away. Now, there's a difference between satire and the mockery. And this is where people say that all humor is fundamentally evil. There were people that grew up in satanic cults. Satire is actually, it's a love song to the empire because it shows where the things that are missing are at. But to enjoy satire, one would have to honor the self and other, which is exactly what's been deprived of in those rituals, in the secret societies. And everything that was reliant on taking people's sovereignty begins to crumble and have very weird results. Now the thing is about those things, because the people that did that invested so much in that, they're really making themselves known. And this is how the invisible becomes very visible. It's kind of and because housing is foundation, so it goes to the foundation of the masonry. And by the way, all this gnosis I got when I was in that estate and then trying to purify the estate, basically from the masonry. Because the Freemasons were basically slaves that believed that they are masters. In fact, anybody that believes that they are masters over something else other than them is a slave. Um, so, yeah. By the way, the word for degree, master, is magister, and magi is magician. Um, which a magician is about alchemy, so it's creating internal alchemy. But you have to have sexual sovereignty for that. And those people were violated from the sexual sovereignty. And even the idea of opting to have sexual sovereignty was considered being a loser in there. Like, yeah, that being sovereign is considered being a loser in the secret societies that basically used to govern the place. So now what's happening is that their foundations crumble. Now it's not a bad thing because, hey, Pluto is out of bounds in Aquarius. Neptune, Saturn is kind of like, okay, the things that are outdated need to change. And so that there can be, a world that is actually worlding. And I think we can see a conjoining of people getting to kind of leave a part of their trajectories and then see what it's like in praxis. So what it's like in praxis ruling the world. Googleplex people saying, hey, I need that. I need my bathroom fixed. I need my, hey, there's somebody trying to contact me in my dream. I don't like that. I needed this, kind of like all the noise in the world. You know, I just think about Tesla and the Swedes having a hunger strike so that Tesla would fix something in the car. I kid you not, that actually happened. People were having a hunger strike. I rest my case. Now, what is hunger is associated with Sedna, and Sedna was next to Algol at the last decan of Taurus, which also rules cars. Sedna has to do with hunger, and I guess with Uranus it was hunger strike. We're going to be having hunger strikes. Oh, there were medical personnel having a hunger strike. Um, I don't remember if it was around Gaza or it was something that happens in UK. The world is worlding, so they weren't having a hunger strike in COVID, or maybe they were and we don't know about it. Now, imagine when people actually don't have food, there are going to be a lot of hunger strikes. I mean, if a person doesn't find food or something, what are you going to do? You just strike about something, have an idea, and say, and you're already hungry. So, but the people that were believing that they can feast on the energy, the life essence of other people, because they had to do this through betrayal, it's the same old Sedna story. They had 12 millennia to learn. They had 12 millennia to learn, but now it seems to be there are going to be in the coming years ramifications to those practices. Because think about it, in the Pluto, maybe that's how Hitler lost eventually in the Holocaust. I don't know, but and then the Americans were, I'm sorry, stupid enough to take their Nazi economic hitmanship. I mean, it works for a bubble of time. I don't think Americans actually enjoy that, and the ones that did are still suffering from the nervous system and bone marrow diseases that accompany such practices. Um, yeah, bone marrow. And now, what's the thing is, they had to do those rituals to get somebody to be at 33, so they get the bone marrow blessing. And um, the poor Master Mason has has graduated in a time where they're going to be not hungry for food, but hungry for essence. By the way, those who try to place curses on your finances, I always bless them to have only access to resources when they do things that are benefic to me and to others, and both benefic and benefic way beyond any type of secret society or mafiosi. It's basically one of the biggest blessings that they could get in their lives, and it's not negating my interest, so I have no problem to bless them. Um, In fact, that's what they need because they were forced into doing crime, and I'm basically blessing them with wealth that is actually wealthing. So yeah, more banking gnosis. Oh, those rituals have to do with banking systems. Well, the bankings, we see banks collapse, and now the banks are in an interface with kind of like Nvidia stuff. Now, what happens when they do a ritual to get somebody's essence? First of all, to curate, they have to send curation for that person, for all of their lineage, all of their foundation, particularly around real estate. And they have to do the benefic thing that that person would do, but without the legacy. And the funny thing is, those people usually do that for a legacy. They basically are, yeah, they would have to, it's kind of like, hey, think about it. The essence of life of somebody was meant so that somebody would do certain things in life. They try to force somebody to do other things in life, like to traffic them, but that person was meant to do certain things in life. So now they have to accommodate for that person through doing what that person would be doing, but without the legacy. For example, Seizure's girl was trafficked, and what is she talking about after being trafficked in Survivor? Everything fertility, the science of fertility, the science of relationships. Now, the womb, when I see women that build their own housing on their own land, they were using the analogy of the womb. And they're still trying to get the creative power of the womb to build housing and foundations. But they would have to accommodate for the womb. And those that traffic basically having all their legacy taken away from them. It's not taken away because it wasn't their legacy to begin with. They used the creative power of the womb of somebody else. So they were living out somebody else's legacy. They get to the pinnacle and then have a downfall because of that. Everybody remembers Hitler as an epic fiscal. If you study economics or anything related to that, or even history or whatnot, you remember Hitler as an epic fail. He was doing the right things and then. And that has to do with the occultistic practices of Aleister Crowley and that Civil War guy. And the occultistic practices to do with the banking system. Um, yeah. Every resource has its spirit and matter qualities, and people know they don't have to sell their soul to get resources. Not at all. In fact, this is a lack mindset, which I addressed in other episodes. It's true, some people are born into these rituals and so on and so forth. Um, yeah, but at least knowing that and tending to that is beginning to open opportunities to get out of that. And um, anyway, so this is where the people that thought that they could get away with everything begin to see the implications of their actions. And again, as usual, it's not about shame and blame. It's about, hey, that thing is, and the people who will be able to see that as, okay, they were practicing something, maybe that was their religion. Now they need to Louis Hay on the things like, is their religious and spiritual practice actually supporting their well-being and overall sense of happiness in life? Or acceptance or whatnot. Everybody has their own thing, but they're going to have to reconsider things. Because with Sedna Uranus, what they will be hungry for is life energy. Because the ritual practices how is Sedna traffic to get her life energy. This is as old as the Inuit. And here there is a use of mockery, but not as a satire. Okay, what is satire? Satire is the common people or elected, okay, certain people that are kind of like the townsfool, and they're doing a satire on the regime. Mockery is not satire. Mockery is usually done to people that are considered degraded or as a practice of degradation. Satire is about illumination and mockery is degradation. Again, satire. Why do all these people that are like that called the narcissistic people act exactly the same? It almost looks like they're made in a Ford factory. They actually cloned and went through ritual abuse and had developed the same coping mechanism, which is trauma mechanism, versus degradation. This is a whore, that is a whore, that is a, look at us, we sit with the red dresses of the people that we conquered. Not satire. Yes, Nazi. Okay, I'm talking about the action. I'm not extending that. So, when it comes to those mockery rituals, and again, shout out to Light, I call it the feminization, humiliation ritual, but the mockery ritual. These people with Uranus Sedna, they will be hungry for life essence. They may have estates. In fact, they may have so many estates that nobody wants to live in them because people would need to evacuate the place, but they also would need to evacuate the place not by purchasing the place. And those houses, those estates will be needed because a lot of houses will be needed, even with the population. Because people will be needed. Now, at first, they will be needed for their life essence. You can have a ton of technology, but what you need is the life essence of people. But then Life essence is not something that you can buy off. And if you kill a person, then you no longer have their life essence. They're dead. They're going on to the light. If you upload their consciousness to a computer interface, you can try to use that to get the life essence of someone. But again, you have to have a person not just living, but you have to have a person connected with their sense of innocence to have their life essence. And then you can't take it because they won't have it, which means that you won't have it. Now, for me, it's not a problem. I'm not trying to take the life essence of people. And all of the gaslighting, shifting this, shifting that, none of that. None of that. Pluto is out of bounds. They can try to make a person go crazy. You know what is the answer to schizophrenia? Housing first, independently of ability to work, and to believe the patient. And adjust the society to the person, rather than the person to the society. That's life. Okay, they have to appease Sedna. They have to appease Sedna to have food. Okay, they try to forcibly wed Sedna, and then they had to appease Sedna to have good relationships. But this is true. Mineralization is playing a factor here on a nervous system biological level as well as a industrial level. Now the mundane prediction is that humanity is going to collapse also technologically. It's going to be like the fall of Atlantis. Alternatively, people will actually rise up. I mean, they had 12 millennia to learn that. So, and again, so the timeline that I had, that I've been connected with yesterday, had to do with that. And then when people try to curse the finances of someone, basically it means that they will have to do only benefic things, or they will not have not just finances but soul essence. Think about it. Person that builds half moon into the soil to nourish the land, to nourish the water, okay, is working in unison with the elements. They are also spiritually connected. Now, what happens when you try to take their soul essence? Oh, they can't water the land. Oh, they can't do this or they can't do that. Oh, oopsie, now the thing that you stole from them is not working, it's not operating. Why? Because it's not you doing this, it's that person you stole the soul essence doing it, and they can't do it when you steal the soul essence. So what's it gonna be? Well, it works like a pyramid scheme. You have to convince somebody else to be doing those things. How will you convince them? I don't know, try to put them through a lot of trauma and stuff and steal their soul essence. But that's an invalid NDA, true. Oh, what about if you have an extortion video of them raping a child? So did Alandra. Who is Alandra? Satanic ritual abuse survivor that was supposed to be Epstein? How did he get out? I don't know. Watch his videos, ask him. Make a contribution, fund for the people that are out of that dumbfuckery. Get your soul essence back. But I never had a soul essence. Of course you had a soul essence. You were just tortured since birth and conception. Now, still trying to be somebody else by stealing their energy will basically give people exactly what they were asking for. Now go deal with, the person did certain practices to be who they are. Now, those that try their best to interfere in a person to really, really try to take their soul essence, okay, then a person does what? Accepting their death, and what happens to the other people that were dependent on their soul essence? They become a bonfire, which was my channeling from yesterday. They try to bury the people, but then people will need housing, and just like in Japan, oh, they wouldn't live in a place where a person was murdered. Why they wouldn't live in a place where a person was murdered? So that people will not discover why that person was murdered. Okay, if let's say place, oh, the place is haunted. Okay, place is haunted. What is it haunted by? The spirit of the murdered person. So, what does he want to tell the story? How do you purify a place from? You listen and you tell the story.